Good afternoon, everyone. This is the Karma Fleet State of the Corporation for the year 2024. My brothers and sisters, we have been through an awful lot since the last time we got together to talk. I'm going to cover, in principle, 3 different things for you today. We are going to talk about where we've come from. We'll discuss what we've been doing. And finally, we will move on to what's coming next for one of EVE Online's mightiest corporations. It's been over a year since we've done this, and quite a lot has happened since then. The story of Karma Fleet begins in the fall of 2014, precisely this time of year, 1 decade ago. The genesis of one of EVE Online's greatest success stories began in the very space that we're inhabiting today. When those first nascent conversations were being had about forming what would be a newbie-friendly corporation inside the storied Goonswarm Federation, they were done by myself and a few other friends, not 5 jumps from where we're sitting right now. Most of us started in brave newbies in one fashion or another. We were having discussions with senior leadership in the Goonswarm Federation at the time, trying to orchestrate what would have been a pretty ridiculous realignment of the galactic superpowers in EVE Online, with an end result that brave newbies would come internal to the clusterfuck coalition at the time, now the Imperium, and become a more fortified beacon for new players and veterans alike. The idea behind this was living in the Ketch region, primarily in similar space to where we are now. It was all too easy for the very large groups in EVE Online to come down and beat the hell out of the new people. It seemed like pairing a brand new player corporation with the biggest super capital and Titan fleet in EVE Online would be an absolutely fantastic symbiotic relationship. In negotiations with the Goon administration at the time and the administration and leadership of Brave Newbies, these talks eventually broke down. A few of us had such a mind to continue on regardless. When it became clear that the leadership of Brave Newbies at that time were no longer going to entertain this idea because, such as it was, they were comfortable charting their own course, which in the mind of most of us that were pulling for the other direction meant providing a useful floor mat for some of the bigger groups in the game to just come and stomp on. The idea was then hatched that we could bring in some of the idea people from Brave Newbies into Goonswarm to start the group fresh and see if perhaps lightning could be caught in a bottle for a second time. Now, anyone who has ever tried to do such a thing would understand the absolute difficulty and what an uphill battle it is to try to capture an idea that had already been captured, or try to improve upon something that at the time was working incredibly well. Goonswarm Federation itself, I wouldn't say was necessarily bad to new players, but it was such an old community with its own language, its own vernacular, its own style of play, that perhaps at times it could seem daunting to a new member to try to find their way in the alliance. Not every corp recruited. Some of the corps that did recruit required vouchers from various forums that they may have gotten their genesis from. It wasn't an incredibly clear pathway inside of the alliance at the time. We set out to change that. We set out to provide an on-ramp for new and old players alike, where the rules of engagement were simple. The banning of any kind of scam was very clear and apparent. Our reputations were at stake. They thought of us sort of as the plucky newbies that inhabited the storied halls of Reddit's r-eve page, talking shit, making a mess, generally just being a disruptive force, but one that had a very powerful influence on the narrative for EVE Online, even back then. Not very long after this, the Chief of Staff of the Goonswarm Federation, Scion, a job that I myself occupied for many years subsequent to that, put a post on the forums called The Grand Experiment. This post almost broke Goons because those walls, that insular nature of the community, were going to be toppled by a bunch of pubby fucksticks from Reddit. They were going to bring their impure blood, their open doors. It was said there would be a dozen AWACS a day. It would never stop until such a time as the Alliance came to its senses and got rid of us. I don't need to tell you that none of those fears were confirmed or realized. We have marched along and done nothing short of write history. There was a very long time back then as we were being onboarded, working with some of the people that came internal to the Alliance to help guide us and make sure that our systems were set up such that our people would easily assimilate to the way that things were already done. We were going to change the way people came into the group, but the core competencies, strengths, and the things that make Goonswarm Federation unique were going to be undisturbed. We were merely going to add muscle. I remember talking to our first senior leadership team at the time and thinking, holy shit, we have missed out, my friends. Everything that this group has done to date, how could we ever hope to replicate that? How could we ever hope to chart such an absolutely unbelievable story, a story worth authors publishing in books, journalists writing stories about in magazines, shit posts as far as the eye can see? It was an incredibly daunting time to be around. We were taking on several hundred pilots a day. We were trying to hold our shit together. We were trying to make sure that we did not sully the storied halls that we had been welcomed into. But the notion that we had missed out was as laughable then as it is today. The year 2024 started with about 7.5 thousand 7,500 people. In Karma Fleet, we did a small purge, late activity. As I speak to you today, 10,100 people call the corporation home. We continue to be one of the most sought after destinations that pilots in EVE Online actively seek out. I cannot even begin to remember how many people have come to me over the last few years and said, I can't believe how much time I wasted before I found this group of people. I spent years spinning spaceships, being in a corporation that was off time zone for me, wondering how the hell do I get my money out of this video game? How do I make this time commitment worth something? And then I found Karma Fleet. This is often the last home EVE pilots will ever find, because you don't need anything more than what we offer. I don't say that out of bravado. I don't say that to be inflammatory. I say that because beyond a shadow of a doubt, we provide more for our pilots. We have better structured systems. We generate wealth. And we provide a positive community where there is a seat at the bar for every single person. Now think of everything that we have done since then. We are one of Nullsec's largest and most active corporations. If at any given moment, depending on where purges are, we can find ourselves in the 1, 2, or 3 spot there. We have the largest corporation held Titan, Super Capital, and Capital Fleet by a margin that would make you so uncomfortable if you knew it, that it is not even close. We dominate internal alliance metrics every single month. And we have done so as long as that data has been published. We are constantly one of the most active corporations on zKillboard. We are often the #1 ranked in every measurable. We are the largest participant in every key battle, keep stars, forts, fights over nothing. It doesn't matter. Karma Fleet will be at the head of the class, the largest participant. If it is a full-on coalition level muster, thousands of pilots on grid and fighting, it's very likely Karma Fleet will have more people than the next 5, 6, 7, 8 corporations combined. If you look to your left and your right when you are fighting in these fights, Karma Fleet will likely have more people than any other alliance that is present on our side. This is regardless of time zone, location, fleet type, degree of importance. Karma Fleet is one of the few groups in the game with such a position of prominence that we can staff and support a 24/7 standing fleet. As a pilot in Karma Fleet, you will never have to log in and wonder, what am I going to do now? How am I going to find my fun today? What do I do with my spaceships today? You log in, you jump in the Karma Fleet standing fleet, and you ask your buds, what are we doing right now? Hit that undock button and go find some fun together. What does this all get you? I think perhaps most importantly, this gets you a place in the next story, the one that's being written right now. All of your activity, all of the positive influence you exert on this community, all of the good you do, is having pen go to paper and writing the sagas and tales that people will hopefully be discussing a decade from now. Back in Declan, which was the first home of Karma Fleet, they were a little worried about us, so they figured, I've got an idea. They weren't comfortable with us jumping into the pool with them, but they did let us have free access to the pond out back. We were 16 jumps away from the staging system of the Alliance YAO. We were put in space that was good, but it was often thought of as so buried that a group would go fallow if left there for long. It was an island. It became a crucible for our corporation because we had to learn how to solve our own day-to-day problems. We had a few systems. We made some money. We met a lot of new friends along the way. We took on tens of thousands of new people over the course of several years. And oh my goodness, if we didn't get our asses evicted the moment we were comfortable, what a kick in the face. Here, this whole time, we had been thinking, not necessarily we can permanently avoid hardship by combining forces. I don't know who's the clownfish and who's the sea anemone, but insert who you will. But it really didn't seem like betting money on the loss of the totality of your space was in the cards back then. But it happened. We got the shit beat out of us. We learned some very important lessons about how to be smart in occupying space and how to preserve your resources if it's a loser. And then we learned everything we used today for how to build an empire. After a very long and brutal trip down to the Delve region, I will never forget. Our team worked out that we were going to put Karma Fleet in the SG Tech C constellation, in the 7G system in particular. We liked that it had an ice belt. Boy, we were simple little shits back then. We dropped our first Fortizar under cover of darkness at a flippin' deep safe. Can you imagine how impractical such a thing is? Because we were scared shitless that we were going to lose the goddamn thing. And they were just going to follow us down the Delve and finish what they started. That didn't happen. Instead, we built the empire of Delve. We built one of the greatest factories that EVE Online has ever known. We occupied two systems primarily, 7G and 39P along with it. We had the 4.0 pipe, T-Tech MOFA leading on its way in. We got this harebrained idea a few years later, once Athanor mining became a thing. Everybody was fighting over moons. Moons were such a thing. Having good moons was such a thing. And they just really weren't available for corporations at the time. We ended up with a bunch of bullshit scattered over all of known space, a lot of it out of actual jump range, which in a region as narrow as Delve is pretty impressive. Many others, the best in fact, in NPC Delve. Boy, doesn't that sound like a great fucking plan. Let's go mine in NPC Delve. So after consultation with our leadership team, we said, you know what? To hell with all this. Let's get rid of them all. Let's get rid of them all and do something that nobody else is doing. Let's tower all the bullshit. But let's tower all the bullshit that is in our immediate radius. Systems in the pocket and in the pipe. Over 250 R4s and R8s were towered. Karma Fleet had a larger structure footprint than the entirety of the Goonswarm Federation Alliance. This was a big deal. After a little fine-tuning and refinement, we mastered that shit. We started printing money again. We started filling a standing fleet and requiring an ancillary Karma Fleet standing fleet just to make room for everybody. It was pretty spectacular. I can tell you, having to arrange all that coming back down, easy for me to say, I suppose, from the captain's chair, but absolute logistical magnificence on the part of our logistics team, but we'll come back to them in a little bit. Having just brutalized these poor people and made them pull down all of this crap, the cores, the fuel, the fits, the structures, it was time to move. Now, the decision to relocate the Alliance obviously was not one that came lightly. I know that there are still critics out there who feel like this was a mistake. So, I think the most important thing to reflect on now is that the Delve that you knew is not the Delve of today. Not anymore. It's operating under the new SOV system. Floating through space, jumping through systems, seeing a half a dozen, 8, 10, 12 havens a system. This does not exist anymore. The carrying capacity of that region is insufficient for groups our size now. It was very, very good to us. We will never forget what Delve made us, but there's a new story to be written. One that each and every one of you who's listening today is participating in, that it is an important fulcrum in that story. That leads to where we are now. Karma Fleet is no longer occupying 2 systems. We are occupying 2 constellations. That was an exciting interruption right there. 4MY and KTAC-Z. In totality, this is 16 different systems. There are already 2 keep stars down. There are 5 major GEZ setups down. B9E, DTAC-W, JDAS, Y1P, and PHTAC-N. This is already configured to be space without peer. There is at least a large size structure in every single one of those 16 systems, whether it's a Fortizar or something industry related. There are ancillary GEZ setups in every single one of the 16 systems. If you were the kind of person who was looking to accumulate wealth, to set up your core of industry and activity. You could not ask for anything better. What else does this get you? You will notice that our logistics team has been dropping structures already. If you go to your in-game calendar by clicking the clock, and then make sure you've got Corp and Automated checked at the very bottom left, you will see that our first moon fracs begin next Friday. I am happy to tell you that unlike our previous setup, which was basically all R4 type moons, we have towered every R64, every R32, every R16, and every R8 in those 16 systems. That in and of itself is about 150 moons of incredible value. I am so excited to tell you that yet again, one of these unbelievable transfers of wealth is occurring right in front of your face. All you need to do is log in and take advantage. Be in the right place. Do the right things. We will provide some codified policies for you moving forward, as these types of moons are something we previously had no experience with at a corporation level. Things related to tax, I will try to make this easy. I will try to do the same setup we had in Delve, where we are just funneling things through the buyback and you are moving along fat and happy with very little concern for the very large taxes that the Alliance levies on these quality type of moons. We will probably drop 100-ish additional R4 quality moons just to make sure that we flush out the calendar so that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, regardless of how many of you are there, how many people show up, there's always something to do. Keep in mind, the space upgrades are something that is in flux right now. As I mentioned before, you aren't going to see the Haven numbers that you were used to. Get your alts good at running Forsaken hubs, Haven sanctums, etc. Check a place like the Player vs. Everything forum if you are looking to talk with other people who may be experts on these particular subjects. There's already posts going up about how to run the escalations, what ships to do them in. Keep yourself busy. If you're logged in and you're staring at 3 docked ships, get 2 of those guys out in Ishtars or Gilas or something like that and get them running. There are some buried pockets of our space where you can make money right now. You will notice also some iHubs are featuring mining upgrades. So there will be various different belts and deposits that you can jump on as they become available to mine with your mining fleet in the meantime. Some people were really surprised when we settled into this space that there was NPC space in range. This was something that we knew going into it. We had lived under the specter of NPC space for 9 years now. It wasn't necessarily something we were afraid of. So to those of you that would like to do your super capital ratting, your crab beacons, take out your big ships and do crazy things in them to make money, you will simply join the Beehive. Hop your way down to Impasse, a region that does not have NPC space in range of it. Significant layers of safety in place. The Karma Fleet pocket, in my vision, will be Ishtars as far as the eye can see, or whatever the best angel ratting equivalent. We will certainly come up with some best practices as soon as we have them. It will be subcapital mining fleets, the occasional Rorqual booster, and we are in direct range of the super fleet in UALX if shit absolutely hits the fan. This is no different than back in Delve. You bring your Sinos on grid, you get them in the right fleet, you call for help to the right people, and you wait until you're instructed to light up. Make smart decisions, do smart things. Don't figure out how to manage a crisis when the first crisis arrives at our shores. Look over that information ahead of time. Familiarize yourself with it. Become an expert with it. It's a game of inches when something like a Rorqual is tackled. The players that know what they're doing are the ones that survive. There is a major Haven bottleneck. Such is just the way that it is. We may be able to dinker around the configuration of an iHub or two to pack a couple more of them into some systems, but it is what it is. This is your reinvigorated nullsec experience. Take advantage of this. When we sit around and we bullshit at night and everybody's talking about the good old days, there is this constant ache that people missed when everybody got rich and everybody got capitals and everybody got supers. That is happening right now, all over again, and at a scale that has likely not been seen since Rorquals and Excavators back in 2018. A lot of people look back to 2018 and think, dear Lord, how ridiculous, these guys are shitting out capitals and supers like it's going out of style. Something like that could never happen again. I am here to tell you we are going to do that again. We are going to do that with our absolutely ridiculous moon holdings. It's going to take some time to get them all stretched out to max fracs. We're going to add some rigging to the best ones to make sure that we have an abundance of the greatest things. But by all means, do not wait for the opportunity to arrive. It is already here. What are our marching orders moving forward? First and foremost, play the game that you've got. We have been so fucked around by patches, expansions, nerfs, things that aren't supposed to be nerfs that are nerfs. Ridiculous this and that's that we sit and scratch our heads about and wonder, how in the flying F did this come to be in our game? Do not be one of those players that wholly identifies with one little feature or another. You are setting yourself up for disappointment. If your entire identity in this space video game becomes some widget somewhere in the game mechanics, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but someone is going to fuck it up for you eventually. That is just the ebbing and flowing of game development. I want you to be one of the helpful ones for our people. Whether that's helping organize the standing fleet, whether that's providing boosts, whether that's offering a Sino to somebody that's looking to move some stuff around, whatever helpful activity you can conjure up to make your community a better place for everybody else, that's participating. Yes, I have Brad on the brain because this next bit I put in there for him. Contribute in a positive way to your space community. That's something Nam constantly preached to us about. Be a good person. Help out somebody that looks confused. We live in such a divisive society where the people that run things would have you believe you hate your neighbor, you hate your fellow man hates you. They want to take what you've got, you want to take what they've got. I am so happy and relieved to tell you here in our little corner of the internet, that isn't how we fucking do things. There is no place here for bittermen, for whiners, for people who constantly exert a negative influence. If that is your contribution to our community, I would ask that you begin packing your things because your days here are numbered. A lot of us are still having a whole lot of fun playing this silly game. And we will continue to do so for years to come. A further marching order of great importance is make sure you're on the corporation Discord. Discord is the hub of our community. There are opt-in channels for all kinds of things that are interesting and fun to talk about during the day while you're absolutely paying undivided attention to your work. There are running conversations of all types. Incredible amounts of information are being transferred all day long in the help channels. You can find information related to your moon fracs, their type and composition. You could have questions answered, and maybe on some far shore, you could answer a question for some newbie who's just looking for a fucking break and a pathway forward. I would be remiss if we left today without first giving thanks. We give thanks to our directors and our leadership and management teams. It seems so silly to have such a thing in a space rating guild, but this is an absolutely gigantic organization. Think of a company with 10,000 people, how many people it would take to keep everybody on the same page. We want to thank our recruiters, our outreach team, the buyback team, all of the moderators that keep you chimpanzees from tearing each other's faces off, our moon and logistics teams, and lastly to all of you. Anyone that provides a positive influence on this community deserves our thanks. Anyone that is a helper of people deserves our thanks. I greatly appreciate all the help that we get from all these people. We would not be the same without it. Take the time to get set up. Take the time to figure out what you're going to do and where. Get your PI setup rolling. Get your industrial setup ready to go. We are so spread out in comparison to the way that we were before, all safely behind the B90 Keepstar, that we will not hammer indexes in such a way that we did back in 3.9 and 7G, where we just completely wrecked everything and ruined it. Have your alts skilling into helpful things. Mining goes into banana land when you've scaled it up 2, 3, 4 barges. You've got about 56 days until those Mac fracs start to hit. So you got work to do, baby. A few announcements before we close. Please be quiet. Hold on. We have Vegas coming up January 16th to 20th. There is a forum post to accompany this. It is getting very close to where you want to start thinking about booking your travel. We're expecting a few hundred people to attend. This is the DC meetup rebranded and sent to Vegas. We have our 10th birthday giveaway coming up the weekend after that. We will very likely be doing that on January the 24th. The ink is not quite dry, but we will be setting that up with several months of runway so that everybody can make the arrangements to make sure they are there. Now, why does your birthday of your space tribe even matter? We'll be giving away one Titan of every type. We'll be giving away 2 Alliance Tournament skins. We've got a few bonus things we haven't even made announcements about that I am sure you will be extremely excited to hear about when we get there. It is no mystery that we do everything big. You also want to check out Captain's Super Bowl board, which there are still a couple spaces left. Now, what if you don't know a whole lot about American hand egg ball and sports ball? Well, just pick a number off the board and participate. Captain's giving away over 100 billion ISK and ISK, a Knicks supercarrier that's fit, a bunch of capital ships. Again, we do everything big. Finally, I'd like you to make sure that you get your Control, Alt, Delve, alts all set up. This is of critical importance. Ragnar has just linked the forum post for that. Everyone thinks, you know what, I can fly a Ferex. I don't need to do Control, Alt, Delve. The reason Control, Alt, Delve works is that everybody's inside that same corporation. They are handing the ships out a la carte. If you've ever been on one, you wouldn't ask this question in the first place because you would realize the mechanics. I say that as a person who is not done setting up my Control, Alt, Delve vault like a bad. Do as I say, not as I do. Make sure to get that done. The Alliance has already said they are going to reward corporations that confront this initiative seriously. As they're saying in lobby, it took all of 10 minutes to get done. I had to get an alt deleted. Granted, I went into a goddamn, you got to get the fucking timer and all that crap. We have covered an absolutely immense amount of ground. We have done so with 3 crashes of Mumble. I think that we had indexed those crashes well enough such that when we host the final recording of this, everything will be in order and cognizant and probably a better experience than this was today. I apologize for those interruptions. I apologize on behalf of the folks that have the unbelievably thankless job to run our IT services. These are volunteers, just like everyone. These are the helpers. They're doing their best. Nobody told them when they hit the install button on EVE Online that they were going to have to run IT services for 20,000 nerds for free on the weekend, middle of Sunday, during football. All right. That's all I've got. Everybody have a wonderful day. Thank you so much.
Mark, I have a few words I would like to say. A few words. Thank you.
All right, everybody. Love you guys. Thanks so much for coming. Really, really appreciate you. Get in that standing fleet. Start looking out for those moons a week from now. Do your best in everything that you do here with us. I can't tell you how much we appreciate all of you guys. Look forward to seeing everybody on the next Saturday Night Swarm or out there on grid in standing fleet. Love you. Have a wonderful day.